This is Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. To begin our conversation on proposed establishment of Grid Asset Management Company, GAMCO, let's take this background report put together by correspondent Ibrahim Belogunda.
Reliable electricity transmission is essential for economic growth, industrial development and national stability. Nigeria's transmission grid suffers from aging infrastructure, insufficient investment, poor maintenance, and operational inefficiencies. To address these challenges, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu inaugurated an 11-member committee to facilitate the incorporation of the proposed Grid Asset Management Company Limited, a new federal government initiative aimed at addressing persistent grid management challenges and unlocking stranded electricity generation across Nigeria. The committee, chaired by the Chief of Staff to the President, Femi Bajabiamila, was inaugurated at the State House Abuja following the Federal Executive Council approval for the company's establishment as part of broader power sector reforms. The panel will conduct a comprehensive review of existing laws, regulations, policies, and institutional frameworks governing Nigeria's electricity value chain, including generation, transmission, distribution, and market operations. The committee will also examine the implication of the Electricity Reform Laws 2025 and the ongoing unbundling arrangement in the sector, particularly as they affect asset ownership, management, and regulatory oversight. It will identify areas of conflict, overlap, or inconsistency between the proposed GAMCO framework and current legal and regulatory instruments guiding the industry. What problem in the power transmission sector is the Grid Asset Management Company intended to solve? Why was the option of creating a Grid Asset Management Company preferred over strengthening the existing transmission operator? How will the creation of the company affect electricity tariffs for consumers? These and more will be our focus on Good Morning Nigeria as we discuss proposed establishment of Grid Asset Management Company.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim, for that background report. And for those questions that you have asked, what challenges that GAMCO is going to solve and whether it will affect the tariff system right now. Well, we have our guest in the studio to discuss the proposed establishment of the Grid Assets Management Company, GAMCO. Let me first introduce Uket Obonga. Is the Executive Secretary, Power and Energy Consumers Advocates of Nigeria. You're welcome. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Also joining us in the studio to discuss this GAMCO is Mr. Olabode Showumi, energy expert. Mr. Showumi, it's good to have you join us.
The pleasure is mine.
All right, and from Kano, we have been joined by Dr. Abdul Rahman Umar Lawan, energy systems researcher and consultant. Dr. Lawan is also a senior academic department of electrical engineering at the Bayero University, Kano, and deputy director, Center for Renewable Energy and Sustainable Transition at the Bayero University, Kano. He joins us from our Kano studio. A pleasure to have you join us on Good Morning Nigeria. Join us on Good Morning
Nigeria. Good morning, Nigerians.
Okay, let's stay with you, Mr. Lawal, and we just want you to explain to us what is all about the proposed Grid Assessment Management Company and why is government bringing this on now?
Thank you very much once more for having me. Actually, the purpose of proposing creation of GAMCO, that is Grid Assets Management Company, which is going to be a limited liability company, is going to serve as an investment drive for electricity enhancement in the country, and also as an avenue for grid modernization, and also to take care of some segment of the transmission network in the country as a sole owner. The purpose for this is because of the reoccurrence of the national grid issues such as grid collapses, frequent faults along the weak grid corridors in the country, especially those heavily loaded grid corridors like Lagos-Benin corridors, Abuja, Kaduna, Kano corridors, and so on. This has led to serious damages or losses in the country. For instance, if you look at the report of National or Nigerian Electricity Market Report, December 2025, which is a few months ago, you realize that the total energy supplied or received by grid was around 300 billion naira for that very month, out of which it was only about 250 billion naira electricity was able to be billed to customers in the country. Then also, or furthermore, out of these 250, it was around 200 billion naira that was recovered or collected. So you can see we have two layers of losses. Even though most people look at the losses from between the customers' billing and what people paid. But if you look at it critically, people don't look at the initial loss between what grid received, which is around 300 billion naira in that particular month, and what has been billed to customers. That difference also matters. For just 1 month, it was about around 50 billion naira. So you can see, and this comes from the aspect of transmission corridor. So it means, if you look at the three segments of power system in the country, which comprises the transmission, the generation, the discourse, it means the transmission link is the weakest link or sector in the three aspects we are talking about. You can see the discourse aspect has really been improved. If you look at the recent figure from the National Electricity Regulation Commission, you can see, I think, ECO discourse got about 90% collection efficiency, followed by ECO and other discourse in the country. So you can see, to be candid, the discourse are doing very well or are improving, especially early now with the emergence of state electricity frameworks, which enable states to look after any stakeholder in the country. But also, of course, the generation aspect, we don't have much problem. But that transmission aspect, which has been solely on the wing of federal government or on the arm of federal government, it has not been seen as a serious threat to the industry, because virtually everything in terms of those goes to the federal government. So in a nutshell, now the federal government realizes that while we are talking about grid collapses, enhancement of grid, on the other hand, it is losing so much money in the aspect of transmission sector. So in a nutshell, this GAMCO initiatives is introduced or being proposed by the executives that is under the presidency in order to reduce losses along the transmission aspect, to modernize the grid transmission corridors in order to have reduced national grid issues such as grid collapses, losses, and the rest. Thank you very much.
Let me stay with you, Dr. Lawan, because now that you've highlighted transmission as the challenge, how does Nigeria's transmission capacity compare with, countries of similar size and capacity, economic size as Nigeria?
Our transmission capacity has been drastically low. To be candid, if you look at countries like South Africa, which is much more less than Nigeria in terms of population, and also we are calling ourselves the giant of Africa, I think their production capacity is around 50,000 megawatt, while we are still talking about generation of 55,000 megawatt, and the highest transmission corridor we have is around 7,000 or 8,000 megawatt. So you can see we are not doing much actually when it comes to transmission aspect. So we are hoping with this emergence of GAMCO, you see, typically Nigeria's electricity sector has three aspects of governance. Number one, we have the commercialization aspects, we have the technical or engineering aspect, and also we have the policy and regulation aspect. To be candid, the policy and regulation aspect has been doing well, which is overseen or which is the oversight of National Electricity Regulation Commission. Also now the investment and the engineering aspect are the one lagging behind. So with this emergence of GAMCO, these two aspects that have been lagging behind, the engineering, that means the technical aspect, and the commercial aspect, we are hoping it will be much more enhanced, especially if the GAMCO is properly implemented in the country. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Lawal. We'll come back to the studio. We'll get back to you during the course of this discussion. Obonga, you have listened to what he said, and some of the reasons he gave is that transmission link has been one of the major challenges that we've been having in that power sector. Likewise, the collapse of the grid, and that is why the establishment of GAMCO, government is proposing it. From your own experience, what would you say? Would you say this will likely help to, mitigate the challenges in that sector?
Well, thank you. For me, I don't think we need another company to create another company or establish another company, grid asset management company, to solve the problems in the power sector. The opening phrase or paragraph that the Chief of Staff to the President, Gbajabiamila, read, he said, the President, I paraphrase, hopes to fast track the quick fix, right, for the problems that are bedeviling the power sector. Fast track, quick fix. We have done it over and over in the power sector, and we are still in this mess. For instance, we are talking of captive power, stranded power that most of these GENCOs are unable. They can generate, but they can't push out. If they try to go beyond 5,000 megawatts, the system collapses, the grid collapses, right? What is the problem? Why is the grid not fixed? Why is no investment in the grid? Why do we have these problems? The language is liquidity. Liquidity is the lifeblood of any market all over the world. And you can't fix the liquidity problems in the power sector, as it were, without going to the root. For instance, shortly after the DISCOs exhausted the collection of pre-privatization debts owed by electricity consumers, that was in 2015. We started hearing liquidity crisis in the sector. And what next? We resorted to doing what? Increased tariff. And the DISCO said they were not giving cost-reflective tariff. And some of us suggested then, if you want to show up revenues in the market, meter the customers. You meter the customers because the meter is a revenue assurance guarantee tool in the market that guarantees the revenue. And we demonstrated here in Abuja. When we went to a community called Kabusa and the estates there and conducted a survey, the revenue in that community that AEDC was generating then was below 10 million naira. And when we conducted a survey and we gave it to them, they deployed 3,864 meters in that community that hosts about 32 transformers. The revenue now is over 200 million. AEDC is collecting from that place. Now the federal government, quick fix solution, made the CBN to release 108 billion to a DISCOs to meter customers who then were saying that, oh, because we don't have cost-reflective tariff, we don't have money, if you can give us. The federal government of Nigeria gave the DISCOs through the CBN 108 billion. Now 108 billion as at that time, if you divide it by 23,000, which was the cost of 1 meter, you have 4.6 million meters. Would have procured 4.6 million meters. And the metering gap then was about 5 million. Which would cover significantly. But that was not done. Now the matter was pushed again. Another quick fix came up. When there was a distrust between the other components, other operators in the system, the GENCOs, the transmission company, and others, they said the DISCOs were not remitting the revenues that were collected. They were remitting about 30%. What happened? GENCOs could not pay for invoices from gas companies. There was a quick fix solution. The federal government through CBN released 701 billion as payment, assurance, guarantee to NBET as a loan, which has to be paid back. It was exhausted. If half of that money was taken to deploy, because the moment you meter the customer and you can be assured you at least upgrade distribution network, you are sure of scaling down aggregate technical, commercial, and collection losses in the market significantly. It has been done in Zambia, it has been done in Kenya, it has been done in Ethiopia, it has been done in Ghana here.
So what is the problem that we can?
Quick fixes which don't solve problems. Even in the beginning, if you look at the models that were used in the privatization exercise, you discover that it is still on that layer of quick fixes. That is why I'm telling you, I am of the opinion, I hold it very strongly, that GAMCO, if it is a quick fix vehicle that they are being, special purpose vehicle that is being introduced, it is dead on arrival. You have Transmission Company of Nigeria. Underline that word, company. It is a company. What is the problem in the TCN? Have we looked into it? If there are problems there, do we need to create another problem to solve the existing problem? Do we need to?
All right. I see Dr. Lawan shaking his head. We'll get to him shortly again. But let me get to Olabode Shomi. Now, Nigeria has invested billions. He's talking about the lack of investment, right? But Nigeria has invested billions into the power sector over the years. Why does it seem that electricity supply remains, unreliable?
Okay, thank you. Good morning. Let me build on what the two colleagues have said so that we can at least we can have a pathway rather than pulling it here and forth. Dr. Lawan, when he started, spoke about the three segments of the sector: generation, distribution, and transmission. Particularly, he noted that there has been improvement in terms of the ATC and C losses report for distribution, and he equally emphasized that the generation has improved. He particularly highlighted the fact that there was a weak link within transmission based on available report. Because if we are going to make progress, we are going to anchor it on verifiable figures.
Yeah.
And one of the verifiable figures is the reports that come in on a regular basis. The other part is that when you look at the things that make noise, the things that get attention, is going to be more with the distribution, more with generation, very little with transmission, which is also why the attention has not gotten there. Everything that has to do with metering that my friend here has spoken about is distribution and the distribution network. But it is very important to remember that about 3 weeks ago or a month ago, there was in the news the fact that there was an audit, independent audit by the presidency of the debt that the nation technically is owing the generation companies, the generation companies, as a result of gas and all that. And that amount was supposed to have been slashed by half in terms of the audit that the presidency gave. Now, whether that is the exact position, because it is being contested, is a different ballgame. That's not, I'm not trying to get into that controversy, but what I'm saying is that there is a controversy there. Now, it should be understood that there is a place for the transmission company or a component of the transmission company who is supposed to guarantee the figures that is supposed to go to NEC. If that were to be the case, it will mean that there is an issue that deserves attention within the transmission backbone. The second more important thing is that there is no investment there. In simple terms, if we are to continue with the lack of investment that is in the transmission, we can wake up one day. It won't just be a matter of grid collapse like we say, it will be a matter of grid disappearance. And what is the value of everybody if we are all looking at it? Even if we, that we can be media and everything, what will be our value if over the years we have not been able to bring attention to what will bring progress? It is easy to say that another company is not needed. That's an opinion, and that should be respected. But what will be the solution? So we need to also understand that when people look at the holistic problem, it is important. It is important for them to look at what is the best way forward. Because if for any reason it is believed that there is a compromise or there is an inability of the current system to take care of itself, the best thing is to look for an ad hoc for you to achieve the goals. What is important is that those goals are achieved. Yes, there is a liquidity problem in the sector. Liquidity problem has only one solution: increase of tariff. There's no other thing. But because increase in tariff is both a technical and a political decision.
His argument is that establishing another company to solve
does not solve
a
the problem. That there are companies available already to solve.
So what if the companies available are compromised? So hold on. So you know you are asking me a question.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes,
so that
yes.
we are not barbarians.
No,
we have
no,
to
no,
talk
no.
one another.
Oh, yes,
So he has spoken. So let me. So my point is that if for any reason the system that is currently on ground is compromised, it is incumbent upon those that have the responsibility of leaderships to look for a way forward. So this may be a way forward, you understand, that would overtake the compromised system in the interim.
Okay.
You get? So there are many reasons why. So it's like a law that comes in. A law works, a law has issues. Then there comes an omnibus law that overrides all of that. So these are dynamics within governance. That's precisely what it is. So for me, I'm waiting to see the movement, to see how much investment drive there can be. As of today, you can't really come up with a business plan that will attract an investor, except somebody that is looking at it across long years, because the business plan based on the figures that are available due to the liquidity issues does not really speak to profit. So if you are a banker and I come to you and I bring a business plan, even from my business plan, I'm not showing you how I'm making profit. What's going to be your motivation for putting money there? That is the challenge of the power sector. So it's about Einstein that said that we cannot be doing everything that we have been doing the same way we've been doing and
the same
expect
result.
change. So there has to be something that will change.
Now, I ask this. Nigerians have heard of many reform promises in the past. Why do you think that Nigerians should believe that this one will be different and bring results?
I'm not government, so let's not confuse that. Why this should be different, I wouldn't really. But this is what I will say, that if we want some things to change, certain things to also have to change in the system. Because if the bone of contention that has led to the recent development is the figures, the amount that was contested by government in terms of the Genco debt. In fact, one of the fallout of that report from the Genco debt was that there was mandated a need out of the amount that government was going to pay them to be invested in the sector. So it is even possible, if the terms are spelled out correctly, that whatever amount that government is paying the Gencos, they may be the investment vehicle responsible for monitoring that. So you see, when they speak in terms of how their purpose is established, they will just speak in terms of eyelines. But in terms of the intent of the people that came up, you may not know until we start to see it play. So to the extent that something needs to be done, yes, Nigerians can trust and should trust that this will also bring some results.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's bring in Dr. Lawal again. I know that Dr. Lawal would like to respond to some of what Mr. Obonga said earlier, that why create another company to solve a problem? It's like creating a problem to solve another problem. You want to respond to that before I ask the question I want to ask?
Hello, thank you very much.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you very much. You see, when we are talking about GAMCO, there are still some gap we have in the power system in the whole country. I'm talking about from the electrical engineering aspect of it, or the power system aspect of it, which a lot of people don't know about the existence of those gaps. You see, let me begin by saying GAMCO is not only unique in Nigeria. It's a similar project. We have similar project in India, which is called Indian Grid Corporation Company. We have similar project in Brazil and other developing countries which are similar economically to our situation here in Nigeria. So you see, this GAMCO is going to address the problems that people have not been looking at it from two aspects. Number one, the aspect of engineering, which have been lagging much more behind compared to other developing or developed countries. Let me start by saying, for instance, the instrument or the equipment we are using here in our transmission lines. We are using virtually first generation equipment in most of our network currently. While the world is moving, we're using like a third generation equipment. It's just like using the ordinary Nokia we had before, comparing them with the smartphones we have nowadays. And these devices are helping us reduce the losses along the transmission lines. For instance, we have limited deployment of such devices. I'm not saying we don't have such devices completely in the country. Yes, for some devices, like currently what we are having now, we have SCADA, which is virtually all over the substation, especially the transmission substation in the country. SCADA is a supervision, control, and data acquisition, which is mounted between the substations and the NISO axis, which is monitoring the grid situations. And also between this transmission, we also have automation between the transmission and load centers or consumers. But let me tell you something. These devices, we cannot yet say we are operating a very advanced grid system, which is more or less has a predictive maintenance aspect. It's a smart grid that can foresee what's going to happen in the near future. It's a type of grid that will reduce losses, especially the ATC losses we are talking about. Look at it. Our ATC losses is almost 20%. As I said, out of 300 billion naira we generated in December, we had about 15 billion naira losses at transmission aspects. And the problem is, when it comes to engineering, we are much more lagging behind. In addition to this instrument we have currently, the whole world is talking about FACT devices. What we call FACT devices are called transmission system devices. They are being mounted and operated automatically to reduce such losses. The voltage collapse we are talking about, the voltage instability we are talking about. That's why you see our problems virtually everywhere we face issues of voltage stability. And once we have voltage stability, there will be a voltage loss or power loss, which result into technical losses or economic losses in the country. So a lot of people are not looking at it from this angle. So in a nutshell, what GAMCO is trying to say is going to modernize, upgrade the infrastructure, not only the transmission line, but also the apparatus or the equipment needed to enhance those transmission lines, which are we are much more lagging them in the country. So you can see another thing is they are looking at, or they are considering Lagos-Ikeja corridor. And now what they are proposing from the GAMCO is double sky-key transmission line, which we don't have in the country. All our transmission lines are single lines. So number one, if there's a problem, the line cuts off, there's no any redundant to support that line. Now what they are saying, we are going to introduce two lines. So you see, GAMCO, that, like I said before, is more like engineering and investment drive aspects. Well, of course, the policy and regulation has been taken care of well in the country by National Electricity Regulation Commission. So those two aspects are why we are lagging behind much more, and people are not much aware of what is happening in these two aspects. So now they are proposing double circuit transmission line, meaning the two lines are there, supplying point A to point B. One line falls down, the other one is there. It means it will enhance the grid stability and reliability. And number two, under normal operating conditions, when there's no fault, the two lines will carry, if one line is carrying 5 megawatt, the other line will carry 5 megawatt. It means we are going to have double evacuation process. These are things that we have never had in this country. So, and that's the purpose of creating this GAMCO. So you see, when we are talking about losses at distribution level, it's something else. When we are talking about generation, it's something else. Now we are talking about transmission, which is the backbone of GAMCO. So the GAMCO is going to be a drive and engineering upgrade of the transmission infrastructure avenue. So in a nutshell, we are much more lagging behind in this whole aspect. We need really transformation. Another thing is like we have grid scale level storage, just like ordinary batteries we have at our homes. If you are taking power from solar panels, and that power goes down because of the weather or whatever, if you have battery at home, that battery will support your system. We don't have any single battery system at grid level in this country. We only them at mini grid level, but the full transmission grid, we don't have any single battery storage system. And even countries like Namibia, in Africa, they are having such kind of investment. So you see, technically or engineering-wise, we are much more lagging behind. And that's what GAMCO is proposing. And it's not the only model in this world. We are copying this model from countries like India and Brazil and so on. So please, I think when we are talking about this, we are not duplicating any aspect. These are things that are very new. And number three, when it comes to investment, you know the reason why transmission aspect has been failing? Because it has been at the arm or has been shouldered solely by federal government plus multilateral investment like World Bank and the rest. We don't have any private sector investment. It is just similar to our commercial banks that we have now. When we are dealing with commercial banks, because if private sector investment, we see efficiency, we see improvement. But when we are dealing with typical public sector, there's no much accountability, there's no much transparent governance, there's no much financial sustainability and debt management. That's what the problem we are saying, like the previous colleague is saying. We have so much money that is being invested and no much result. Why? Because the investment is solely from the coffers of federal government alone. Sometimes, in some cases, plus multilateral organization, we don't have investment coming from private sector. So now what GAMCO is saying, let's have private investment in this aspect, like what we have at distribution level. Let's have private investment in this aspect, like what we are having in generation aspect. Like I see now generation, nobody is talking much. Now we have generation. If generation will be 10,000 megawatt, and distribution, our demand will be 10,000 megawatt, how do you connect this distribution and transmission and generation together? It has to be through transmission. So in a nutshell, because of the 2023 Electricity Act or 2025 Electricity Act, the investment drive is part of the purpose of that Electricity Act. And thank God that investment drive have started yielding results in terms at generation level and has started yielding results at distribution level. So now the only sector that is being still solely under federal government control is that transmission. So what GAMCO is saying, let's bring private investment, let's bring institutional investment, let's bring partnership, and let's start with some corridors as a test bed or as a proof of concept so that we can see maybe the other corridors will learn from it. So in a nutshell, it's something new, it's something that has never been done in the country, and it's something that has been proved to work in other developed countries. So that's why I'm saying let's look at it critically. For me, it's a policy progress. For me, it's a good development. We are going in the right direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lawal. But from what you have said, what I can deduce is that there is likely to be clashes of interest between GAMCO, TCN, and the other in that sector. So how will operational responsibilities be shared between, TCN, NESO, and GAMCO?
Yes, to be candid, there may not be some clashes. You see, TCN is still the asset owner, the sole owner of the whole national grid. But GAMCO is going to be an asset owner to specific corridors. In other words, it's going to be an asset owner to specific choosing transmission segment. So in other words, TCN will continue to take care of the whole national grid transmission system while GAMCO is considering bit by bit. And that particular corridor will later, at the start of the GAMCO, is going to be stabilized by federal government by providing infrastructure in terms of generation to take the stranded power we have generated, we get from Niger Delta aspect. And also probably in the second aspect, they are going to look at concession, bring investments into those particular corridors, not in the whole TCN network. You understand the concept? So in other words, TCN is also serving as system operator and coordinator for our physical transmission line, while GAMCO is only focusing across particular selected segment of TCN. In other words, it's going to be like a test bed or proof of concept, then later it will be expanded. While on the other hand, we have NISO. NISO are more or less like our observers. NISO don't have physical contact with our network, power network. NISO are always in what? Control room. They are always observers. They are just grid observers and grid stabilizers. In other words, they coordinate the activities between generation, transmission, and distribution in the whole country. While TCN is only considering transmission, even the transmission concerning only the national grid aspect, not state transmission level. You can see, so the framework are very clear, and the roles are very clear. So the only thing we need some awareness. So I didn't think there's going to be any conflict with the emergence of GAMCO. So, and also, when it comes to maintenance and an upgrade of that network, GAMCO will only be responsible for those particular segments. And in future, we are going to see equity participation in that GAMCO, just like we have similar project in Nigeria. We have something like NLG, liquefied natural gas. It's similar to what GAMCO is going to do. Because initially, liquefied natural gas of Nigeria is 100% owned by federal government. Then later, international investors come in. And you can see it's one of the vibrant sector that's really moving well, or really bringing economic impact in the country. So the same thing applies to GAMCO. So you can see people are just looking at it at first shift or first, how it starts. But the purpose is at second phase, there's going to be concessions. Some lines are going to be given to private investors. When they build those line, then power will be able to be transmitted from generation sectors to distribution sectors. So that's how it's going to work. Thank you very much.
Lawan, thank you very much for your perspectives. We'll get back to you, but let me come to Obonga now. And I'm wondering, if GAMCO manages, to improve transmission capacity, would you say that this can automatically translate, to improved power supply?
GAMCO, I pray it does improve transmission capacity and improve the national grid.
So let's assume it does.
That's why I say I pray it does. But now, how is that going to be done? Funds are required. I recall either in 2019 or 2018, the Buhari administration had a facility from World Bank to put in place the double circuit corridor from Benin to Lagos, construct a large or a big transmission station at Shagamu Interchange. That was started. But shortly after that, we have not heard anything about that. So that has been there. What GAMCO, they are proposing GAMCO should come and do, put that double circuit line from Benin to Lagos, harness the redundant power from Omotosho plant, Olorun Shogun plant, and Ihobov plant, with a total installed capacity of about 1,800 and something megawatts, which they are now proposing that if they can harvest up to 1,600 of that, it will feed that axis effectively. That plan has been there. And I know that because some time ago, the World Bank invited a few of us and gave us an appraisal of the monies that was in the Buhari administration in November 2022. They asked for applied for additional funding in the power sector to the tune of 3.5 billion. And that project was there, was mentioned there. We need money to execute these projects, upgrade the obsolete and dilapidated infrastructure in the grid. We need money. It boils down to what? Money. Who is going to incorporate this company? The federal government. Right? Are they going to bring people from the moon to come and man these companies? Are they not Nigerians? Is it not the same system and structure? I am not an optimist. My heart desire is for the power sector to work for this country. But the problem is this. Oh, you went to India. It's happening in India. It happened in India. It happened in Brazil. It happened here and there. Do we have the same environment? If you work there, did you, in the privatization of the power sector in the world, Is it not Nigeria and Venezuela that the privatization exercise has failed so far? Did we not copy from India what we did here and came copy and paste? Did we put into consideration our environment and the way things, the structures and the systems here? So these are the things, my brother. It is not about grammar. It is not about policy. You look at policy inconsistencies. You are putting up a company to come and do carry out a mandate that another company has been put in place to do, like the TCN. If you are having issues with the TCN, if they are, like you say, compromises, can't you overhaul the system? Can't you overhaul? Are the people there going to be there forever?
What if this leads to the demise of the TCM, for instance?
How can it be led to, are they the people who are making the system to fail? Are they not other Nigerians who can go around the world? Go around the world. Is it not a Nigerian who designed the transmission code of Ghana, a Nigerian who is presently here in this country? And is a consultant to the Republic of Ghana, right? And it's the same Nigerians who, before the privatization exercise, they sat down, looked at the distribution infrastructure, looked at transmission, looked at everything, and they worked out a roadmap. Was it followed? Those who came on board. Did we not train, send Nigerians experts here to India, all over the world? When they came, did they have a place to operate and function? Did we not go and bring in people because of political expediency into the system that is making the system to fail? We should come back to our senses and forget about all this drama. The solutions is here. The Nigerians who command that TCN, if the federal, okay, for instance, listen to what happened some time ago. When Usman Gom Mohammed was the DG of TCN, right? He did a lot of things. And at the end, when he was leaving, he left behind 450 billion in the coffers. I'm talking on national television. You can fact check. 450 billion naira in the coffers of TCN. What happened to that money? How was that money invested to upgrade, expand, and solve the problems we are talking with TCN? Go into, we were invited by NEC, and TCM was called to come and make presentation. They were showing us landscaping and all that stuff. Landscaping is different from vegetation control. Do you do landscaping under the lines? Landscaping. And we hear of the corruption that is going on in that TCM, and nobody bothers. No probity, no accountability. People are not held to account. There will be great collapse, and nobody is sacked, nobody is removed, nothing. Then we look and come up with other stories to come and add to it, and we want to confuse the whole system. Listen to me, my friend. I coordinated a national survey between 2018 and 2021 on the quality of electricity, sponsored by MacArthur Foundation. And you say, we went around this country. We gathered data. So when we're sitting down here to talk on this, I'm not talking from the point of view of somebody who is sitting down, getting juggling policies and so forth. No. We are talking based on what is on ground.
All right. Thank you, Obonga. Now, just to say to our viewers that we anticipate your messages, your contributions, especially from experience, what you know of the power sector. Just share your messages. The number is displayed on your screen. Make it short. Let's know where you are writing from, your name, and to help us take as many messages as possible. Now, Olabode, he seems to have a problem with the uniqueness of Nigerians, the unique environment that we operate in. Do you see a problem here with GAMCO in terms of the people, personnel, corruption, and all whatnot?
I think first of all, we need to clear. I think first of our problems is that we are not clear even in simple matters. It's very easy to bring up the problems of distribution, mix it up with transmission, mix it up with generation, and then the whole thing looks like an impossible box. But that's not how problems are solved. Problems are solved from time immemorial via observation and analysis. And what is analysis? Analysis is not the big scientific term, because it's even the foundation of all scientific. Is that basically you pick up an issue. Let's say your wife cooks soup. Now, what is this soup made up of? It's made up of water, salt, maggi, okra, palm oil. That is what is called analysis. So you break up the component parts. So that soup that looks interesting and all that can still be broken up into simple things. What we are doing is refusal to look at the causative factors, but rather mixing up things so that everything looks impossible. We are not facing an impossible situation in the power sector. Far from it. Okay. What we have had is a breakdown of certain component parts. But what we have done is refusing to look at the causative factors, but looking at everything as the problem. That is first important to note. Number two is that there is a way systems work. As in, systems as different from individuals. That is what is called systems thinking. It's also important to know that. Now, this is not a class for all of that, so we can't be going into management consulting and all that. But let me borrow from what the gentleman from Bayero University has said, that we have a generation, an asset company, which has a focus on the areas that are causing the most problem. Now, let me give you an example. You wake up in the middle of your night and suddenly you stomp your toe. It's your Lego that hit, but it feels like the whole body is under problem. So sometimes you just want to attend to that part that makes it look like everywhere is under problem. And then you now move on to the component parts. From even the simple explanation that he has made, that the GAMCO is not in any way competing, even by its mandate, with the TCN. That whatever GAMCO is going to do is owned, the asset is owned by the TCN. So, in simple terms, based on political expediency, based on the need, based on attention, based on grid collapse, based on all the multiple things you can talk about within the transmission backbone, the GAMCO exists to attend to certain areas. And if it is able to be successful, then you can move on. Let us not forget that the foundation of the privatization in Nigeria was not for the, it was not the highest, no, it was not the company with the highest amount that took it. No, it was the company with the best business plan for solving the problems. And the problems is what is now known today as ATC and C losses, aggregate, technical, collection, and commercial losses. The technical part is basically what Dr. Usman has spoken about, voltage stability, grid investment, all those kind of things, which at that time in certain places was as much as 50% in terms of the losses. So if we have an asset company that is going to exist and take certain amount that should have been wasted and put it in the investment, in the transmission, why is that not welcomed? Why is that going to be killed before it's born? Because if the existing system can actually take care of itself, why is it having so much debt, even debt that is contested? So these are fundamentals. So there is a need for an open mind. There is a need to take things bit by bit and ensure that the system works. We cannot say everything cannot work. And like he said, that there is a similar company in India. It is important to note that many people found the privatization process very funny. But the only reason why there was some amount of progress was because we copied within certain limits what happened in India. So if there were things that were not perfected there, and this is one of the solutions that worked there, why is it impossible for it to also be tested? So it is important that we look at, like I said, we need to look at where the real causative factors are, so that we are not using highfalutin words and just being unnecessarily pessimistic and seeing what is simple technical and commercial issues as impossible things to do.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Showme. You know, earlier on you talked about probably one of the reasons why, you know, GAMCO is coming on board is because maybe there have been compromises in TCN and all that. But with this establishment of GAMCO now, what measures do you think is necessary to be put in place to ensure that there is transparency and accountability in this? But we'll hold on. When we come back from the break, you answer to that. We'll take a break now. When we come back, the conversation continues. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. You're still on to Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Our discussion is still on the Grid Assessment Management Company that is being established by the federal government. And we have a guest in the studio. And before we went on break, Mr. Showme, you were supposed to answer the issue of transparency and accountability in this establishment.
Okay, I think when it comes to accountability and transparency, it is a systems thing. It is nothing peculiar to any part of industry. And it's important to note this, particularly in our Nigerian environment. And I say this as somebody that has run a company, run a multinational, and has also run a business. When you see one of the reasons why most of our companies, even when they do well, cannot move from what you call mom and pop, where they are having 2 or 3 people, to a place where they are starting to employ 50, 30 people, is because of those kind of systems. So you have somebody who feels that he cannot employ both an accountant and a treasurer. So he gets his wife's junior brother, who is going to be the accountant and the treasurer. And after about 5 years, he discovers that a lot of billions have been stolen from there. So the issue is not about trust of the person. It is about a system for checks and balances. So if you look at the people who would like to hate, the Lebanese, the Indians and all that, you may not like them, but it's difficult to steal from them, primarily because they have systems in place. So there is a way the money is supposed to come in, there is a way the money is supposed to be stored, and there's a way the money is supposed to be transmitted out, and there is an audit process that comes in. When you have those systems in place, it becomes difficult. Not impossible, but it becomes difficult for those things to run. Then when there's an audit, and it happens at the regular time, you will discover if there have been violations of that, and that is where law enforcement comes in. What has happened here with us is that the systems that is supposed to protect all of these things are not being engaged. So that is where the issues are. So there are certain things. So in terms of the systems that will ensure transparency and all that, that is not necessarily the job of those executing the GENCO. But there are Auditor General, there are systems in place within the civil service, systems in place within government establishment that should work, that should monitor them, that should police them and ensure that those things work. So if certain people don't do their job, the whole system will not work. Let me take, for example, one of the jobs of the media is to hold government accountable. In a nation or in a democracy where media does not do its work, democracy will fail. Not because the democratic institutions themselves may be weak, but because the component parts that make...
haven't done their bits.
Haven't done their bits. So let's go back to our okra soup issue again. You have put in your okra, you have put in crayfish and everything, but you didn't put salt. It's a very small thing. But the final result does not hit it. So there are things in place. So this thing is called systems thinking. How a system works. It is the reason why that neighbor that is bypassing the meter should not be celebrated. Because people forget that if that neighbor is not paying for it, the cost is not disappearing. Somebody is paying for it. And those are the reasons why we have collection losses. Those are the reasons why you have lack of investment. So when we start to have systems thinking, is that how the sum of the component parts affects the whole. It is the systems thinking and the systems in place that will ensure that the transparency works, that will ensure that even if you put an angel in a position, an angel can be compromised if the system is not there to work it out. Yes, we talk about Nigerians being this, being that. I've traveled with Nigerians who are unruly at Lagos Airport. And once we got to Heathrow, they became very gentle, everybody on the line, because they know that the system expects, and that same system will punish. The biggest issue in Nigeria is not that Nigeria is complicated, it's because there are no consequences for wrongdoing. People expect to get away with doing wrong either by blackmailing you or by begging.
Now, you've come to some form of
That's exactly what he said. That is a different. So what we are talking about is a different issue. Those things are not power sector issues.
Oh, okay.
I'm a power sector company. I'm just talking generally so that we don't mix issues up. When we separate issues, there are issues for law enforcement, there are issues for those who are running governance, there are issues for those who are running management, and there are power sector issues.
And then overall, you agree that there must be discipline.
Yes, but let us not confuse the issues. That's what I'm saying. You cannot put management issues on the power sector.
Okay, Mr. Shomi, it's not that. It's just that, earlier on you talked about, the compromise in the sector. That is why probably this GAMCO is coming into establishment. But we have questions and comments from our viewers, which we want our guests to respond to. The first one is from Alaji Garko from Abuja, Karu site, Abuja. It says, good morning, presenter and guest in the studio. I thought the power sector have been privatized and is now being controlled by the private companies. My question is, if these private companies cannot be able to run the power sector properly, why can't the federal government rethink about the privatization? Okay, Yusuf Lucky, he says, good morning, sir. I may ask, why will federal government not allow state government to provide electricity for their state? I think that has been answered. From Mohammed Awal from Kano, he said, good morning. How does GAMCO differ from the existing transmission company of Nigeria? Maybe we'll go to Dr. Lawal to provide some answers to some of these comments and questions.
Thank you very much. You see, sorry, let me start by the answering the last questions, if I could remember. He asked, how does GAMCO differ from TCN? I said it earlier, that TCN is still the caretaker of the physical structure of the transmission segment in the country. In other words, they still remain the system operator and coordinators on how the electricity is transmitted from generation to load centers physically, with physical people attending to their issues. While for GAMCO, it's going to only focus on a particular corridors. We have about many corridors, maybe most critical corridors in the country. We have about 7 corridors. Corridors mean transmission axis in the country. So you can see now GAMCO is looking at one particular corridors out of the 7 we have in the country, which is Lagos-Benin corridor that comprises about 4 states, Lagos, Ondo, Ogun, and Edo State. So they are going to look at the, Lagos is the largest demand area in the country in terms of economy and in terms of revenue generation in the electricity sector. While also that axis considered is also taking the largest electricity generation in the country. So you can see it's very strategic location. So in particular, GAMCO is going to only focus on that particular corridor, start it as a test bed or proof of concept, then later it will be expanded to other corridors. And the other difference is in terms of investment. TCN still solely remains or depends on the federal government budgets plus some multilateral organization donation or loans. While GAMCO, I still keep repeating, is going to be private sector driven, including institutional investment. So you can see the whole country, if you look at the banking sector, why did you have progress in the banking sector? Because we have private sector investment. Why do you have investment like Dangote? If you could remember 20 years ago, PIB, Petroleum Industrial Bill, has stood for almost 20 years before it's been passed into PIA. And people who are saying it's not possible, you cannot have a private refinery in the country. We solely relied on what government refineries for the first 40 or 50 years in this country. Now look at what is happening today. It's private sector refinery that is holding us. And the model is still similar to what GOMCO is saying. So you should understand GOMCO are just asset coordinators. In future, they are going to be shareholders. In future, they are going to be in the second phase of it, they are going to be concessions. Currently, even the IPP is coming from that Omotosho plant and others, they are going to be leased and under concession with GOMCO. So you can see private sector is going to really help, while TCN is still remaining under federal government control. And the other question is saying, why can't state governments have their own plant or generating electricity? No, state government have been given this chance to generate, not only to generate or distribute, they can even transmit their electricity within their jurisdiction, meaning within their states. So they are being given this act through 2023, this power through 2023 Electricity Act, and I believe some states have established their electricity market, state like Lagos, and they are doing well. State like I think Ondo, Ogun, they are also on the process. So we are doing well, and they have given this chance to create generate their electricity. And mind you, even this GAMCO, to be candid, those states that have framework are going to be the one at the front line to enjoy from GAMCO. Because we are talking about investment. And when we are talking about attracting investment, there is not going to be any investor to invest his money without any framework, investment framework on the ground. So for those states that don't have any framework, in other words, don't have established state electricity market, they may not enjoy from this benefit of GAMCO, of emergence of GAMCO. Not only GAMCO, even from the multilaterals. Because now with this law, state can as well, the way federal government is accessing loan and other grants from other multilateral or bilateral, state as well can do. But let me remind them, they cannot have it if they don't have any framework on ground, or if they don't have any established electricity market. So in a nutshell, we are making progress in this sector. So the third question, sorry, I forgot about the third question, if you could help me with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Lawan. Thank you very much for your perspectives. Now, I have some messages from this end, too. And this first one is from Maria in Kogi State. It says, good morning to everyone in the studio. This discussion is coming at the right time. My biggest concern about Nigeria Power is, how do you even give what you don't have? I still keep wondering how we gave power to some neighboring countries enjoying 24 hours electricity. All right. And from Kogi State as well, government should work on corruption in energy sector. That's from Oba Josiah Olatunde in Mokpa, Kogi State. And finally from here, the gentleman sitting by your left is full of knowledge. He seems to understand and know the problem of power in Nigeria. Why can't he be made the Minister of Power? That's from IKJP from Onitsha, Anambra State. But we seem to talk a lot about government this, government that, but we know that government has not really been, never really been a very efficient manager of business. So if we have a conducive environment that enables the private players to come in and turn things around, wouldn't that be better for us?
Well, we have heard this severally said, government has no business in
running business, right? I take for instance the establishment of the One fertilizer plant, petroleum. One, yeah.
One, right. The company that built that plant built a similar plant in Argentina. Have you heard of One plant of late? That same company, run by a government of Argentina, has produced 4 plants. 3 plants, 4 now. Why did our own fail?
Why?
He talked of the system we are operating, the environment we are operating, that gives room for. People are not held to account, my brother. People are not held to account for misdeeds, no probity, no accountability. Right? Mm-hmm. And where people are not punished for wrongdoing, you know, you open the gateway for. Today, because of the kind of leadership we have in our nation, look at our little children. God forbid my children cannot be involved. And Yahoo all over it. And they are seeing that as a way of life, acceptable way of doing things, which is wrong. Which is wrong. My brother, the power sector, we are not reinventing the wheel. And to run the power sector in Nigeria is not a rocket science, for crying out loud. We have the very large electricity market in this country, which can be run efficiently, effectively, profitably. But today, globally, we have about 90 to 95 million of people in Nigeria who have no access to electricity. Why? We are talking of, he talked of increased efficient revenue collection. That is the area we are working on as we speak. And I've been in Eko and Ikeja district investigating. Why? You look at generation, distribution, between an average of 3,900, at times it dropped to 3,400. Nothing in terms of power generated, power distributed, power generated, power transmitted, and power distributed has not increased significantly. But revenues keep on rising. Keep on rising. Why? Because they introduced another one again called service-based tariff. Customer classification was disaggregated to tariff bands. And the discos committed to what? Supplying band A customers 20 hours minimum. Committed service level. We have carried out, my work is to conduct researches and studies. Here in Abuja, Apo resettlement, when it all started in 2022, from June 2022 to April 2023, we conducted a survey there and discovered that for 11 months, not 1 month, that AEDC was able to supply 50% in a month. That is in a day. You have 20 hours times 30 is 600 in a month of 30 days. Not 1 month. And when we confronted AEDC, the place was downgraded from band A to band C before it came up again to band A. So what we are saying is this. Listen, we compound issues in this country. It's like a man who tells a lie. And when it's about to be discovered, he finds another lie to cover this lie. This is what is going on here.
Now, you have talked about an improvement in generation. But analysts over time have said that even the one we generate, we are unable to fully distribute.
Why?
So why don't we focus on being able to offload the ones that we have?
No investment. Listen, the Minister of Power invited us somewhere. And even when I served in the technical committee of African Development Bank, African Energy Marketplace, to draft this national policy and integrated something for electricity in Nigeria, power. You looked at everything. You begin to wonder, you begin to ask yourself, are we really serious in this country? The discourse, according to the Minister of Power, have not invested in expansion, and upgrade of distribution infrastructure. They have not. They have not, according to the minister. You go to Gencos, they have scaled up. Today we have installed capacity of 15,500 megawatts. 15,500, meaning that the Gencos have invested and ramped up generation capacity to that level. But now, you come to TCN, like he said, it is purely in the hands of the federal government that owns 100% equities, employs or appoints whosoever is there, and politics comes in.
Okay,
so if we are having issues in that direction, why can't we now decentralize TCN at the zonal level? Give Northeast their own grid, give Northwest, North Central, and so forth, and experiment on that and see if it can work.
Mr. Bonga, we have to cut you short there because of time, and we would like Mr. Showmi also to comment, to make comments on some of the issues that we are talking about here. With this, the establishment of GAMCO now, do you think the government needs to tweak with the policies and regulatory framework to be updated to guide, to help, or to enable GAMCO to be able to function effectively?
So when you say tweak, you are presuming by that statement that there is a clash in terms of policies. I don't think so. Because they have clearly different mandates. Or should I say, they have supporting mandates to each other.
Okay, let me put it this way. What policies or framework do you think is needed to be updated?
I don't think there is any. I think sometimes we over assume the importance of policies, regulations, and laws. Okay, so there are three instruments of governance. You have laws, which is made by the parliament. You have regulations, and you have policies. Policy speaks to general guidelines that are within a certain place. Regulation speaks to rules that are anchored on the foundation of the law. So most of the times, the regulations tend to have legal implications, and of course, the laws. So those three things. But you see, when it comes to those three things, they are like the white lines on the road. You can have a beautifully paved road, very well marked, but if you have a drunk driver, what's the value of all of that if he breaks all of that? So rules are like guidelines.
Okay.
It is still the people implementing it that have to follow those rules. Where there can be issues of you tweaking and all those things is if the guidelines are clashing. They are not clashing. So that's why I said that we put too much emphasis on the laws, too much emphasis, and the things that should be individual responsibilities is either we make it an issue of policy or we make it an issue of governance. Simply an example, security. Security is both government responsibility and individual responsibility. That's why you lock your house in the night when you want to go and sleep. That's why when you leave your car, you lock it. Now, if you leave your car open with the key inside and they steal your car, yes, security is still government, but that particular case is a case.
Failed.
Yes, you failed in your own responsibility. It's a different thing if there is within the vicinity a particular area where thieves are and thieves come out and come and hit. That one becomes government responsibility. So in all these things, there is a place where is the responsibility of individuals, even as us as citizens. I mean, your neighbor is defrauding the system by everybody is hailing him and calling him smart. You are part of the problem of the system. In as simple terms as that. So what I'm saying in the long run is that we put attention on the wrong issues. That's what is causing the thing. We don't actually zero in on the causative factors. We just sum up everything as a big problem.
GAMCO is about to do that now.
The GAMCO, don't get it wrong. GAMCO is to focus on the issue of investment, which we have not had over the past decade. And investment for transmission.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Shomi. Let me get finally to Dr. Lawan. In just a minute, what must Nigeria do differently after investing, huge amounts, in decades and experimented with reforms? What must Nigeria do differently now to solve its power supply?
So you see, as we said, number one, we look at the investment aspect, as just explained by the previous presenter. And number two, we look at the modernization of our systems, to be candid. In terms of modernization, I mean the technological advancement. You see, we have to really embrace it. If we embrace it, then we are hoping, or we will be optimistic. We are going to see changes. Basically, these are the technical aspect or the engineering aspect, which has been lagging behind in all these three segments among the commercialization, policy, and regulation. Policy-wise, we have been doing very well in this country. The scientific commercialization now investment is talking about it. But the issue of advancement, the engineering aspect, it has to be really, really look open to see transformation. Because when we are talking about the resilient grid, when we are talking about the reliability, the stability of the grid, we have to always look at it from the engineering aspect, which I believe is what has been lagging behind in the country. So what I'm saying, the stakeholders has to really be on board with the technical requirements needed to really move electricity sector forward in the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abdurrahman Umar Lawan, Energy Systems Researcher and Consultant, who is also a senior academic at the Department of Electrical Engineering at the Bayero University, Kano, and Deputy Director, Center for Renewable Energy and Sustainability Transition. That's at the Bayero University studio as well. You joined us from our Kano studio. We appreciate your time and your thoughts. Let me also thank Olabode Shoumi, who is an energy expert. We appreciate your time.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you for coming. And finally, Uket Obonga, Executive Secretary, Power and Energy Consumers Advocates of Nigeria, PCAN, and also National Secretary, Network for Electricity Consumers Advocacy of Nigeria, NECAN. Thank you very much for your time and your thoughts on Good Morning Nigeria. All right, and that does it for the program today. We'll see you again tomorrow. I am Victor Azubaba for now.
And I'm Ademola. Do have a lovely day.